Welcome back to our Chapter 3, Screening and Staging Engagements. We're going to cover Learning Objective 6, which is describe the value and role of research in forensic accounting. So a research is aimed at answering the question or solving the problem or providing a greater understanding of the situation. So forensic accountants are engaged to complete a specific assignment within a specific context, employing professionally accepted processes, theories, or methodologies. This requires a collection of a sufficient and relevant amount of information and the application of appropriate methodologies to develop and support these conclusions. So a substantial component of any type of forensic accounting work involves research. Research is an investigative process that aims at accomplishing this purpose of the engagement through collection, analysis, and interpretation of data. Research helps in making a more fully developed, reasoned, and defensible opinion. So forensic accountants perform both primary and secondary research. Primary research involves the collection, analysis, and interpretation of original data. So common sources of primary research for forensic accountants include witness interviews, organizational data such as stock certificates, corporate minutes, and shareholder operating agreements, asset protection data like insurance policies and appraisals, communication data, and it continues. Primary research is often based on a sample selected externally because it's rarely possible for a forensic accountant to analyze the entire universe of relevant data or the entire population. So that represents a scope limitation that has to be disclosed in your report. Primary research is expensive and it requires a huge amount of time and effort. So as forensic accounting engagements are data intensive, a detailed research plan becomes necessary. And a key function of this research plan is to specifically identify the data that you want collected and analyzed. This helps in establishing whether the data is available and whether it can be processed within the time frame of the engagement. Then we have secondary data. So secondary research is carried out with the data that has already been compiled and published by others. So secondary sources of data are mostly common to all cases. So these relate to more generally to the subject matter or the research question or problem. It may sometimes serve as a starting point for us to do the primary research, and it might help us in assisting in getting a sample selection. So common sources of secondary information that forensic accountants use are published statistics, maybe published economic forecasts, law review articles, media, academic publications like theory development, methodology development, or the existing body of primary research. We might look at professional publications like best practices, trends, applications of theory or applications of methodologies, and case studies. We might look at law review articles like legal arguments or summaries of case law or defenses or prosecution strategies. We might look at published court cases as just a few items that we might look at as secondary research. Then we have online research. So the internet serves as a great resource for research as most of the secondary data sources are now available online. So in addition to these secondary sources, which can contain published information, the internet also contains a wealth of unpublished information, which can provide some critical information for our engagement. But you have to use this research with caution, as you may find some false or misleading information along the way. So a huge volume of available information may put the researcher off track. So academic search engines are the recommended source for this type of online research. So we have characteristics of good research. Only quality research should be used to support your expert opinion, whether it is the practitioner's own primary research or references collected through secondary research. Any good research starts with a clearly stated problem, and then it follows a specific plan or procedure that is designed to gather sufficient, relevant, and reliable data. It is guided by the stated problem and a working hypothesis, which is a tentative explanation based on preliminary observations. So importantly, hypotheses are never proved or disproved. They are either supported or rejected. A good research also accepts the critical assumptions that provide a foundation for the analysis. It may require reliable methodologies and facilitates the collection, analysis, and the interpretation of the data. And this concludes our lecture for this learning objective.